Welcome to the Bodhi Academy. My name is Amjana Kulaso, and today we are going to start with a new chapter, Class 7, Chapter Soil. So, now when we say soil, we need to understand that soil is an inseparable part of our life. Now, why do we say that? See, soil firstly is the most important natural resource that is available to us. It is there in quite abundance. Secondly, it supports the growth of plants and as well as animals. Plants grow, which we tend to survive on, like we do agriculture, we do some forestation, we do a lot of other stuff on the soil. Our houses are firstly built up on soil. So say this layer was not there, what would we do? There would be no cultivation of crops, which in turn would be no food for us. Even many of the clothes that we wear are grown from these different plants that we grow on the soil. So therefore, we say that soil is an important or an inseparable part of our life. So soil is one of the most important natural resources. It supports the growth of plants by holding the roots firmly and supplying water and nutrients. So the basic life support of plants is the soil, because this soil provides them with nutrients and also it supplies water to the roots. It is the home for many organisms. So we know that there are many types of organisms that are present in the soil. So this soil also becomes their shelter. Soil is essential for agriculture. Agriculture provides food, clothing and shelter for all. Therefore, soil is an inseparable part of our life. The earthly fragrance of soil after the first rain is always refreshing. So whenever we are like, there is like scorching heat over there, then we wait for the monsoons to arrive. The first day when it rains very heavily, that pleasant smell of the soil which comes is very refreshing. Now, let's see first soil teeming with life. So now, how does soil support life? One day during the rainy season, Paheli and Bojo observed an earthworm coming out of the soil. So Paheli wondered whether there were other organisms also in the soil. So now what happens is that we say soil has many microorganisms. So one of them is earthworm. Then we see some other tiny moving creatures, like we see ants also that come out. Then we see the worms that come out. So all these organisms, they live in the soil. So soil is basically their home. Now, let's look at the soil profile. So, soil is composed of distinct layers. Now, when we look at soil from the top, we only see the top layer. We don't know what is underneath. But soil is composed of many different layers. So, now let's perform a following activity to find out how these layers are arranged. So, now here what they are telling is, take a little soil, break it up nicely. You know, when you try to remove soil, it is always, it comes out in clumps. So try to break it nicely. In a glass, take some water and add that soil. Then leave it, give it a good stir first and then leave it aside for some time. What we are going to observe is that we'll see different layers. See, here we have humus, then we see water layer, we see clay, sand and gravel. Now let's see what each of these layers consist of. So the rotting dead material uh, in the soil is known as the humus. So whatever plants or whatever organisms that die, they remain on this top layer, that is known as the humus. You probably know that the soil is formed by breaking down of rocks by the action of wind, water and climate. So how was soil formed is basically when over the years, say there's a place, okay, and there is wind flowing, there's water and there's some kind of climate change that is happening. So over the years, if there's a rock and there's water continuously going over it, and after some point or every time there's water going through it, some part of it will get washed away with that water. So in that case, after some time, that rock won't be existing, it has gone. And this water that takes it in small particle form ends up forming the soil layer. So this process is called weathering. The nature of any soil depends upon the rocks from which it has been formed and the type of vegetation that grows in it. So now nature of the soil depends on from which rock it is formed. Depending on where that rock was present, what type of rock it was, and what type of vegetation it is able to grow. Now the vertical section through different layers of the soil is called as soil profile. So a vertical section as in a standing section from where you can see all the different layers of the soil, that is known as the soil profile. Now each layer differs in feel, texture, color, depth and chemical composition. Now when we look at these layers, they not all of them are not same. They differ in the texture that they have, the composition that they have. Like we said, the humus layer has only the dead rotten matter that is present. Maybe underneath that matter won't be present, so something else will be present. So these layers are referred to as horizon. So each layer of the soil profile is known as horizon. Now let's see what are these different horizons. We usually see the top surface of the soil, not the layers below it. So for us, until and unless we dig, we won't see what is inside. We'll see only what is on the top. We look at the sides of a recently dug ditch. We can see the inner layers of the soil too. So if we look at a place which is dug up, which is recently dug up, okay, to be more specific, because if it is dug over a long period of time, then those layers won't be prominent enough. But if it is recently dug up, then you can see all of these layers or these horizons thoroughly. Such a view enables us to observe the soil profile at that place. So soil profile can also be seen while digging a well or laying the foundation of a building. So when a building is built, they dug up the area. A huge area is dug up. In that case, we can see the soil profile more clearly. It can also be seen at the sides of a road, on a hill, or at a steep river bank. So when we go on the roads which are like situated on the sides of hills, so at that hill, when you look at that vertical part, you can actually see the layers of other soil profile. Now, the uppermost horizon is generally dark in color as it is rich in humus and minerals. So what we see is the uppermost horizon that we see is always dark in color, because firstly it is rich in humus and minerals. Why is it rich in humus? Because the dead matter is found there. Therefore, it has more nutrients and more minerals. The humus makes the soil fertile and provides nutrients to growing plants. So what we say is that when there is any matter that decays on the top profile of the soil, what happens? The soil tends to take up all the nutrients from that dead matter over there. So that makes the soil very fertile, and it also in turn provides nutrients to the other growing plants. This layer is generally soft, porous and can retain more water, and it is called the top soil or the A horizon. So this layer is usually soft. Now if you try to dug up the top layer, you can easily dug it up. Why? Because it is soft and it has more open space inside. Therefore when you add water on top of it, the water easily goes inside because there is more space for that water and air to pass inside. This layer is the topsoil, or it is also known as the A horizon. See, it is this layer, this part. This is what we usually dug up to put our seeds of any plants and all, or to grow plants over here. Now let's go to the second. This provides shelter for many living organisms such as worms, rodents, moles and beetles. The roots of small plants are embedded entirely in the topsoil. So also these worms and all, which are the rodents, which are the beetles, they live in this topsoil. And also the plants of the roots of the plants, they are completely embedded in the topsoil. That is, they are nicely distributed. Say, you can see here, The roots, all these roots of the plants, they are only present in the topsoil. The next layer has a lesser amount of humus but more of minerals. This layer is generally harder and more compact and is called the B horizon or the middle layer. Now the next layer, what they are saying is that it has humus but it doesn't have as much as the topsoil or the A horizon has. Also, but in this case it has more of minerals, and this layer, it is generally a little bit harder and it is more compact. There is less of open space, and this layer is called as the B horizon or the middle layer. Then we have the third layer, that is the C horizon. This layer is made up of small lumps of rocks with cracks and surfaces. So this they are saying is that it is made up of small rocks, not like very hard rock, but yeah, a bit brittle enough rocks which are present over there. Then the last layer is the bedrock, and bedrock is the most hardest layer that is there, and it is very difficult to dig it even with a spade. So we saw the four layers. First we saw the A horizon, B horizon, C horizon and the bedrock. Now let's look at the different types of soil. Now each place we look at, we won't find the same soil. Different places tend to have different types of soils. As you know, weathering of rocks produces small particles of various materials. Now these include sand and clay. The relative amount of sand and clay depends upon the rock from which the particles were formed. That is the parent rock. Now each soil or consists of some amount of sand and clay. Now the amount of sand and clay, it basically depends from where this soil is coming or from where these particles have come, from which rock they have come. That is known as the parent rock from which these particles have come. So the mixture of rock particles and humus is called as the soil. So what is basically soil? It is the mixture of these tiny rock particles and the humus, that is the dead matter, that together makes up the soil. So living organisms such as bacteria, plant roots and earthworms are also important parts of any soil. So now the soil is classified based on the proportion of particles that are present in various sizes. Now, the soil contains greater proportion of bigger particles. Okay, so if there are more bigger particles, then the soil is called as sandy soil. If the proportion of fine particles is more, then it is called as clayey soil. And if the amount of this greater and smaller particles are equal, then it is called as loamy soil. Thus, the soil can be classified as sandy, clayey and loamy. Now, the size of particles in a soil have a very important influence on its properties. So now, depending on what size of particles is present in that soil, they say that the properties of that soil also vary. Now, sand particles are quite large. They cannot fit closely together. So, what they are saying is that if you look at sand particles, they are quite big in size. So, therefore, and they are of various size. So, what happens is that if two come together, there is still some kind of gap that is remaining over there. Then these gaps are filled with air. Now, if you know that we say that sand is well aerated, what does it mean is that there is enough space for air to go through it because of its larger size of particles and the space that is left in between. That space is then getting filled by the air. Therefore, we say that sandy soil is well aerated. Also, we see that when we go to a beach and we try to pour some water on it, on the sand, what happens? The water quickly gets absorbed. Why is this happening? Again, same reason, that there is enough space inside for the water to go in. So therefore, the water quickly gets drained. So sandy soil tends to be light, well aerated and it is rather dry. Now let's talk about the clay particles. Clay particles are much smaller than the sand particles. So when they are small, what does it mean? They are going to pack very tightly. So therefore, there will be barely any space for air to go inside. Unlike sandy soil, water can be held in tiny gaps between the particles of clay. So clay soils have little air, but they are heavy as they hold more water than the sandy soil. Sandy soil holds water, but clay soil tends to hold more water. Therefore, it makes it heavier. Sandy soil, it will just go on draining the water. So, it won't be as heavy as the clay soil. Lastly, the best topsoil for growing plants is the loam. Loamy soil is mixture of sand and clay and other type of soil particles known as silt. Now, silt occurs as a deposit in riverbeds. The size of silt particles is between those of sand and clay. Now, there are another type of particles, that is silt. Now, these silt, they have a particle size in between sand and clay. It isn't greater than sand, nor is it smaller than clay. They fall somewhere in between. The loamy soil also has humus in it. It has the right water holding capacity for the growth of plants. Therefore, we say that loamy soil is the best topsoil for growing plants. Okay. So in today's class, we learned the importance of soil firstly. Then we saw what are the organisms present. Then we saw the soil profile, that it has different layers, different types of layers. Then we saw what is humus. We saw what is the process of weathering. Then we saw what is the soil profile, that is the vertical section of different layers of soil, that is the soil profile. Then we saw that soil profile has various horizons. Then we saw what is A horizon, B horizon, C horizon, and the bedrock. Then also we saw the soil types, that is sandy soil, clay soil, and the loamy soil. And we also answered why that loamy soil is the best soil for growing plants. So thank you so much for watching today's video. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the Bodhi Academy.